Hi there, this is Deb Shinder again, and I'm back with part three of my answers to the candidate questions that were posed by Kellie McKee to some of the other candidates running for City Council in this election. The first question in this part has to do with community, and it says, given the diversity of people in Rowlett, how will you as a council member be inclusive and treat everyone fairly? Well, treating everyone fairly means first setting very clear policies and writing legislation that's explicit, so there is no room for interpreting it differently in different cases. Then you apply those rules and policies and processes to everyone equally. You don't give special treatment to certain groups. I believe in equality, not equity. That means that we don't give special treatment to certain people or groups, and we don't engage in well intentioned but misguiding attempts to make up for the mistakes of past generations by punishing those who weren't a part of them. Guaranteeing equal outcomes is an impossibility, and when you try, you end up like the time travelers in science fiction novels who go to the past with the intent of fixing the present and then end up creating unintended consequences that cause an even bigger mess in the present. The next question has to do with priorities, and it says, beyond police, fire, and public works, which city departments or services are your top three priorities and in what order? Well, those essential functions of government are my top priorities, and eliminating three of them certainly makes it a more difficult question for me. It's also unclear from the question whether we're talking about budget priorities, as in where do I think we need to spend more money, or simply about which functions are the most necessary and important to the operation of the city, and they may not necessarily be the ones that cost the most money. In the form of government that's adopted by our charter, city management certainly fits the latter description. It's absolutely essential. It's the job of the city manager's office to hire and fire all the directors who run all of the city departments directly, including police, fire, public works, and all the rest, and to ensure that they all run smoothly. It's also the job of the city manager to ensure that we stay within the budget. He or she is the one who puts together that budget and presents it to the council in the first place. The city manager's office has to be a top priority because ultimately it holds the most authority, even more than the council in many ways. And it also has the greatest responsibility. Secondly, an essential function and first response department that was excluded from those exclusions in the question is animal services. Without that department, we would have serious health and safety issues. Our animal services officers protect public health and animal welfare by enforcing laws, rescuing animals in need, and investigating animal cruelty cases. They play a vital role in managing rabies and other animal-borne diseases and in mitigating situations involving people and animals. So I consider animal services to be a public safety function, and I prioritize it accordingly. For my last or third one, community development. That's a department with a big umbrella, and it does include some services that might be thought of as amenities, such as neighborhood services, but it also encompasses some really important necessities, such as planning, building safety, code enforcement. Before we can have economic development, we have to have those foundational functions to ensure that the businesses and the homes that are built in Rowlett are properly planned and are built in accordance with safety standards, and that property owners maintain those properties to prevent risks to public health and safety. So that would be my three, but choosing these three doesn't mean that these are the only departments and services that I think are important or that I think should be funded. We have many, many services that our city provides, some of them on an ongoing basis, some of them on a one-off basis, that are very, very beneficial to our city and our citizens. Next question. If budget constraints required reductions in city spending outside of public safety and public works, where would you recommend cuts and why? Well, I don't believe it makes sense to say that you would cut an entire particular department. Instead, I would look for redundancies and overlap of programs as well as outdated programs or those that have become irrelevant over time across all of the departments. I would explore options for streamlining our processes and for using modern technology to automate some of the tasks. And I would also review the contracts to ensure that money isn't being wasted. I would look for additional funding through grants and or public-private partnerships to avoid cutting services. If there was truly no other way, I would first conduct surveys to determine which services are most important to our citizens. And finally, I would look at such solutions as reducing overtime or maybe cutting the hours, but not eliminating some of the non essential services, such as some of the parks and recreation programs or maybe some library programs. But that would definitely be a last resort. Next question is about our favorite subject at this time of the year, politics. And it says, local government in Texas is designed to be nonpartisan. Can you share an example of a time you worked with people who held different political views to achieve a common goal? Well, first, nonpartisan in local elections simply means that an R or a D or an L or a G or some other letter doesn't appear next to a candidate's name on the ballot. Doesn't mean city officials can't belong to or support a party, and it doesn't mean parties can't support city candidates. In fact, since 2015, home rule cities under Texas law have had the option to make their elections partisan, that is, to place party affiliations on the ballot. That aside, almost no two people hold the very same political views on every issue, even if they belong to the same party. You have to be able to work with those whose ideologies differ from yours if you ever want to get anything done. Most, although not all, city related issues are not partisan in any way. Roads and alleys, water and sewer, trash service, clean and safe neighborhoods, these are concerns that cross the party lines. I have, in fact, recently worked with the council member who is most opposite me when it comes to national politics on co sponsoring several different agenda items that we both care about. As Mayor Pro Tem and Deputy Mayor Pro Tem on the council in the last 3 years, I worked closely with former Mayor Margolis on an ongoing basis, even though we disagreed sometimes vigorously on some issues. I don't want to work with people who just go along to get along. I want to hear opposition opinions. I want to engage in lively, respectful debate. It helps me to make the best decisions, knowing that I've heard and considered the other side of an issue. Next question. At times when the city can feel very divided, how will you work to bring everyone together? Well, I think the best way to do that is by being cordial and respectful to those with whom I disagree, even if they get angry and emotional, and by being open to talk one to one with anyone, but also respecting their boundaries and not trying to force them to engage if they choose not to. The first step in bringing people together is, ironically enough, to acknowledge that we are very divided. Our entire country is, and so is our city. We have to learn to separate that political division from our professional actions. We can stand up for what we believe and express those opinions and still be friendly to those who believe something different. When people vote against us, even on an issue about which we feel passionately, it doesn't mean that they hate us or that they're bad people. We have to learn to believe that because we are going to disagree. We need to learn to disagree agreeably and to not take disagreement personally. Moving on to the next category, and that would be zoning. First question says the city is forming the Recode Rowlett Committee to review the city's overall approach to zoning. If you could change one thing in our zoning code, what would it be and why? The main thing that I would change would be to make it all more user-friendly, easier to navigate, easier to understand, and easier to go through the processes. I would cut the extraneous red tape and eliminate all those hoops that both developers and residents who want to simply improve their property have to jump through, even after a project has been approved, in order to proceed with each step of the work. I would focus on safety and durability and remove many of the requirements that are aesthetics driven or that are based on just subjective criteria and preferences. Next question, big hot topic lately, trash. And the question is, Republic Services recently became the new provider of trash services for the city. The transition has been somewhat challenging for residents, and the services provided in the new contract do not match the services that residents were previously receiving. As a council member, what, if anything, will you do or can you do to help ease the transition and to address the reduction in service? Well, first and foremost, I think communication and education are key to the success of any transition. Most people don't like changes, especially when the change involves a reduction in service. And they like it even less when they don't understand the reasons for it or exactly how it's supposed to work. Republic and the city did put out informational videos and social media posts, but many people don't use social media. And even if you do, the ephemeral nature of the Facebook feed means that if you aren't there at the right time, you'll miss some things. Many of the frustrated customers that I hear are older people. They may not use social media at all. They may not be comfortable using an app on the phone. The communications that were put out focused on the process and the rules, and those are important. But it didn't explain the why, and it left citizens thinking that the council just arbitrarily decided to switch from FCC to Republic and cut the frequency of their bulk pickup. I also believe the city needs to keep negotiating, keep exploring creative options and alternatives. And to the extent that the contract allows, we need to take an active role in seeing that our citizens get the service that they're paying for. This is an ongoing issue. It's going to be addressed by the new council. And I hope and believe that we will get it worked out. Next category is the role of council members. And it says the first question is about commitment and time investment. It says serving on the council requires significant time and effort. How many hours per week do you anticipate dedicating to city business? For me, that's going to be as many as it takes. I'm retired. I don't need to worry about a paying job. My kids are grown. They have successful careers and they live in different states. My husband has a job that he loves that keeps him busy, provides us with financial security. He fully supports my candidacy, and after the past 3 years, he's familiar with and okay with the large amount of time that I will be spending in meetings and at events and representing the city in regional and state events and carrying out all the duties of the mayor. When we had the storms and the power outages in May 2024, I was mayor pro tem. Blake was out of town, and I was there at the ELC day and night, along with the city manager, public safety directors, and emergency management coordinators, other key personnel. As a member of Aries and Skywarn, I'm already on call when there's an emergency, a weather-related emergency. I'm prepared to take on all the duties of mayor as chair of the meetings with extensive knowledge of parliamentary procedures, as ceremonial head of the city, attending and speaking at local and regional events, and as the disaster management director who has already had the experience of declaring a local disaster. Next question is commitment to term. Are you committed to serving the remainder of this term? Under what circumstances might you consider resigning? Well, I think anyone who knows me will tell you that I am not a quitter. Unless it's physically impossible, and I don't mean just physically inconvenient, I finish what I start. I'm absolutely committed, if elected, to serving the entirety of my term as mayor. I won't quit to run for higher office or to take a real job or because I'm mad or frustrated with my colleagues on the council or city staff. I will be here for the duration, barring truly extraordinary circumstances such as medical health issues that are so serious that they make it impossible for me to go on serving. Next question, kind of related to that, balancing responsibilities. How will you manage potential conflicts between city service and your personal or professional obligations? Well, I don't really anticipate any major conflicts. As I said, I no longer have any professional obligations other than in my role on the council. And being mayor will be my job, my full-time job. Just as when I was a police officer and then as an IT pro, that's not a 9 to 5 job. I'm used to juggling my public service and my personal life. And I'm used to setting priorities and making sacrifices when necessary because duty calls. I'm lucky to be at this point in my life when I can dedicate my energy and my enthusiasm to something that I love dearly, my city. Not as a hobby or a part-time job, but as the full-time mayor that I believe Rowlett, at this pivotal time in its history, needs and deserves. And I'm also lucky to have a spouse who understands and supports that commitment. Next question, role within city government. How will you work within the parameters of Rowlett's council manager form of government to be an effective council member? I'll be completely honest here. It's not always easy to do that. The separation of powers, the prohibitions on operational involvement, the restrictions on freedom of speech are some of the biggest challenges of serving on the council under our form of government. Citizens out there expect and sometimes demand that you do things that you simply don't have the legal authority to do. But having worked in other roles in city government as a department head and as part of the executive team, I understand maybe more than most the reasons behind those limitations and how this form of government is supposed to work. I can and will stay in my lane. I'll tend to policymaking, legislative tasks, ceremonial duties, and representational duties. I will gladly share my opinions and my concerns and try to use my influence with the city manager, and I will ask the questions that need to be asked, and I'll address the problems that are within my purview as mayor, while recognizing that running the city from an operational standpoint is not part of my job description. I'm there to represent the people and also to keep them informed, to lead but not rule over the council, to vote my conscience on the action items that come before us for decisions, to propose new laws and policies or revisions to the existing ones, to establish and nurture relationships within and beyond the city that can benefit the city, and to keep my focus on the big picture in the long term while allowing others to do their jobs of implementing the details. Next question, council member responsibilities. How do you see the role of a council member in shaping city policy while respecting the professional expertise of city staff? Well, council and staff aren't, or at least shouldn't be, adversaries. But having served in both roles, I know that they do often view policy matters from different perspectives, and that's actually a good thing. Staff members generally have more training and skills related to particular aspects of operations. But professionals, because of that, sometimes can get tunnel vision and fail to consider the bigger picture. And that's where the governing body comes in. Council members represent the citizens and view operations from the point of view of the customers, not from the convenience of or hardship on the staff, and not usually, unless those council members are experienced in the particular field, in terms of the technical details. But working together, staff and council can balance one another's point of view and cover all the bases and provide our citizens with the best services possible. And the last section is closing. And the first question in that section is, what is the key difference between you and your opponent that voters should consider when making their decision? Well, while we agree on some things and have worked together on numerous projects over the last 3 years, there are many significant differences between Jeff and myself. Differences in municipal government experience, both the breadth and the depth, in our leadership styles, in philosophy and ideology regarding things like fiscal responsibility and individual rights, in priorities and vision, and I will expand on those separately later in another venue. But I think the biggest difference, the one that is clear and objective and can't be denied, the one is that is not a matter of character, it's just a matter of fact, is that we're at very different points in our lives. And consequently, I have much more life experience to draw on as your mayor. As I said at the Chamber of Candidates Forum, it's about time. I've lived in Rowlett for over 20 years, twice as long as Jeff. I've lived on this earth for over 2 decades longer. I've put in more time learning the ins and outs of local government from many different perspectives. And I have more time now to dedicate to the very demanding and time-consuming job of being mayor. I'll be there all the time, not just in the council chambers for meetings, but at the EOC through whatever emergency strike, at the beck and call of the city manager when policy guidance is sought, at the events, regardless of time or day, at regional meetings in Austin, ensuring our city has a voice. Whenever, wherever, and however long I'm needed, I have the time to be Rowlett's full-time mayor. I think that's probably the biggest difference between the two of us. And the last question, please share any closing comments you have and let voters know how to reach you with questions. Share your website, email, phone, etc. if you like. Over the next decade, our city is going to face the twin pressures of rapid growth and aging infrastructure. And we are going to see the opportunities of emerging technology and also the realities of public safety threats. We need strategies to address them, and at the same time to preserve the spirit of Rowlett that we love so much, the friendly hometown intimacy that drew so many of us here in the first place. In a time of transition and transformation, leadership can't be just a buzzword. It has to be a way of life. My qualifications to be mayor are about what I've done for the city and what my vision for the future is. It's about the depth of my knowledge of municipal law, policy, and processes, and the breadth of perspective that I can bring to the dais on day one. For me, municipal government's not an abstract interest. It was the family business that I grew up with. My platform is straightforward, and it's based on the same work ethic and values that I learned from my dad all those years ago. To keep government both business friendly and people friendly. To fix what's broken before building shiny new things. To guide growth so that new amenities enhance rather than erode Rowlett's hometown ambiance. And to leverage technology to deliver services efficiently while never losing the human touch. To find out more specifics about my priorities, principles, platform, and plans, visit my campaign website at www.deb-shinder-4-mayor.com or email me at deb@deb-4-rowlett.com. Thank you for being here and for listening to my sometimes long answers to all of these candidate questions. I hope they've helped you to clear up where I stand on some of these positions, and I would really appreciate your vote for mayor on May the 3rd or during early voting, which started today. Thank you.